Draft Bible Player Spotlight Show. I am your host, Chris Shanafelt, bringing you the names that you need to know first since 2002. And it is now a pleasure to welcome back onto the show. He is Davontae Harris, 2018 NFL Draft Prospect, defensive back out of Illinois State. He was actually our very first NFL Draft Prospect interview to start off this 2018 draft season. And it's a pleasure to welcome him back onto the show. And Davontae, really appreciate you taking some time, as always. How's everything going, man?
Really good. Actually, just got home not too long ago from a workout. Just really been training to get my mind right, get my body right, and ready and focused for rookie minicamp coming up.
No doubt about it. And you know, when we were able to first chat shortly after your season ended, or shortly after your career ended at Illinois State, Davontae, and since then, I mean, you've been getting ready or you've kind of shifted and turned yourself into a track star, a track athlete, getting ready for the NFL Combine, getting ready for your pro day. How happy are you that all that is behind you, and you'll never have to run a 40-yard dash? You'll never have to, see how high of a vertical you can jump, or how much reps of 225 pounds you have to bench press. How happy are you that all that's behind you, and now you can just focus solely on football?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely happy. You mean that I got it done, and that you mean while doing it, it was pretty successful, and that I kind of make a name for myself. But for me, that was just part of the process, and this next step, training and get ready for rookie minicamp, is just a second step going into the process before you get into the preseason and really make a name for yourself on those teams. So that was just part of the process. I actually really enjoyed it because I have a track background. So running and doing bench pressing and all that stuff was kind of a fun experience for me.
So I gotta think that track background it really helped you out a bit in at least expecting or knowing what to expect, and maybe there wasn't as much pressure for you. Although this was the NFL Combine, your pro day, those were very big job interviews, probably the biggest job interviews you'll ever have. But I gotta think, going through all this once before, whether it was in high school or maybe even in college a little bit. I mean, I got to think that kind of calmed your nerves a little bit, kind of knowing what to expect.
Yeah, definitely. Just because running is something that I've always done, and something that I've always been pretty decent at. So just that being the main focus of this process, easy for me and was pretty, me making the transition from going from a football season to kind of going to the combine mode.
Well, before we focus on the combine, Davontae, in January you had the pleasure of playing in one of the top college football all-star games really in the nation, in the country, and that was the 93rd annual East-West Shrine game, the longest-running all-star game there is out there for college athletes in the football background. What was that whole experience like for you, playing against some of the top in the nation, kind of being able to compare yourself? Here you are coming from an FCS program, although it is an FCS program where you're able to play elite talent week in and week out in the Missouri Valley. But here you are being able to play up against guys and receivers and quarterbacks from Power 5 conferences. I mean, what was that whole experience like for you?
That was just a really good experience because I think it was just a perfect situation to put players in who've never been in those situations or haven't had to play against those Power 5 schools week to week. So for me, it was just kind of one of those things where I could go in, I kind of show the way I play and show that I can dominate it among some of the best players in the country. So really going into it, I just took it as an opportunity, and I just took it as something that I could use and something that I can grow from throughout this process.
And I was down there in person. I thought you had a fantastic weekend. Obviously, that showed up on game day as well. What was it like being around professional coaches for the very first time? And although it's I don't want to say it's a watered down playbook, but the playbook isn't very in depth there. Obviously, you're only there for 5-6 days practicing, and then the game itself. But what was it like, kind of being around pro coaches for the first time?
Yeah, no, I thought it was good, and I think it was a good kind of system for us to kind of work our way into being pro athletes. So I think the biggest and best part for me was kind of going into it. I was a little kind of nervous in a way because I've never been around NFL coaches, didn't know what the expectations were. I didn't know what they wanted from us. But after the first day, I just had to put it in my mind that at the end of the day we were just playing football. So once I kind of got in my mind that you mean at the end of the day, regardless if it's college coaches or NFL coaches, it's still a game of football. Then it made it easier for me to make that transition. And I think as far as you mean the playbook that they gave us and stuff that they did, it was pretty uh, it was pretty easy for the most part, just because in the system that I played in, we had a bunch of checks and a bunch of different coverages that we ran. So the playbook of the NFL isn't too much different than what we've done. There's a couple calls actually that they had us do that were the exact same calls that we ran at Illinois State. So going through that process, I didn't have to overthink anything because it's a lot of stuff that I've already done.
How did I mentioned Illinois State? You guys play in the Missouri Valley Football Conference. It's tougher than some of the bigger Division I or FBS program or FBS conferences out there. How did being able to play up against great talent in the Missouri Valley? Obviously, you were going up against a guy that you've seen quite often in Jake Weineke there in St. Pete. How did that help you prepare for the East-West Shrine game, being able to go up against top-notch talent in the Missouri Valley week in and week out over the past 4 years?
Yeah, no. So for me, I thought it was just, I thought it was good because these are a lot of guys that I've already seen. But also, I think that the Valley had some of the best players there. So coming from a conference who had a lot better players than some of the Power 5 schools just made it easier for me and more of a seamless transition than thinking, oh, I'm going to go against this guy from Louisville or from whatever school they're from. So for me, for the most part, it was just we were just out there playing football. I didn't really think and look in too much of where the people came from because at the end of the day, they lace up their cleats just like we do. So my biggest focus was going out there to dominate regardless of what their helmet said. So that's kind of what I put in my mind and what I was looking forward to doing.
Again, he's Davontae Harris, the defensive back out of Illinois State, 2018 NFL draft prospect, joining us here 2 weeks away from the 2018 NFL draft. How excited are you for draft day, man? Obviously, there's a really good chance a lot of people are expecting you to go on day 3, anywhere between rounds 4 and 7. Anything can happen. What are your plans for draft day? And again, how excited are you that we are now just 14 days away?
Yeah, so really, I'm just, I'm just kind of working out and focusing on things that I can control. At the end of the day, I've done what I can do for the most part to get drafted where I'm going to get drafted. So beyond that point, there's not much I can do. So right now, my focus is solely towards training, working out, and making sure that I'm in shape and I'm good to go for a rookie mini camp to kind of solidify the reason to why I got drafted.
You were one of the fastest defensive backs in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine, an official 4.43 40-yard dash. I know some people even had you in the 4.2 and 4.3 range, but here we have it, 4.43 official. You were the strongest defensive back, 22 reps of 225 pounds bench press. You had a 32.5-inch vertical, 123-inch broad jump, 6'9", 6'3" cone, 4.4 20-yard shuttle. Is there anything else that you can do, or did you feel that there was anything that you can do to better yourself throughout this draft process, whether it was your performance at the East-West Shrine game, which, again, I thought you were one of the, if not the best cornerback there in St. Pete, or was it, you mentioned it, now you're playing the waiting game, being 2 weeks away from the NFL draft. There's nothing really you could do now. Is there anything you'd like to go back and maybe focus a little bit more on, or are you completely satisfied with how you've done throughout this draft process?
To be honest, I think I've done pretty decent in a lot of things, but I wouldn't necessarily say that I was satisfied. Not at all. And I think the biggest thing that I'm trying to do is make sure that I'm getting stronger, faster, and maintain the and that's something I've been doing. I've been watching a little bit more football and trying to go back there and see the vision from a safety standpoint in case teams want to see me play safety. So
Now, Lance, I'm going to read you a quote from Lance Zierlein of NFL.com. All right, he says, Davontae Harris struggles to squeeze routes in man coverage and can be beaten down the field, but he has good size and toughness. and may offer a team the versatility of playing outside cornerback or safety. Harris needs to play with better anticipation to give him a head start on his transitions out of breaks, but he has a chance to be a decent backup at either cornerback or safety. What do you take away when hearing that projection of you and your future? And I know that you said that or I've read that you had some motivation from how scouts kind of viewed you before your pro day, before the combine. And is this something that you kind of take and store in the back of your brain and kind of use it as motivation throughout your career?
Definitely. And for me, you mean that's the type of stuff I love because going through the process, the biggest thing on that I noticed, and I actually had it as a screensaver on my phone for the longest, and the biggest thing, one of the Lance said, very average athlete, and that's something that I've kind of taken and kind of made very prideful within myself to make sure that I can prove him wrong. So going to the combine process, I think that was one of the biggest things that kind of fueled me to and keep pushing me to do what I did. And I think the outcome of or what I did at the combine really helped me out in the long run. But really, that's the type of stuff you mean. People make their predictions, people make their assumptions, but at the end of the day, you have the spot that you go out there, and either you're going to prove them wrong or you're going to prove them right. And that's just based on what you do and what you take care of.
Couple more questions for you, and then we'll let you go, Davontae. Really appreciate your time. And you don't have to, if you don't have to specify if you don't feel comfortable doing so. But what has been the outlook on you in terms of how teams view you? What are some of the feedback? What's some of the feedback that you're getting from NFL teams when you chat with scouts and coaches and general managers and so on and so on? And about how many teams do you feel you have a legitimate chance of being drafted or signing to, in 2 weeks from today? I mean, is there a list that you have, a list of maybe 6-7 teams that you feel pretty good about that, you could see eventually you could see us lining up for them?
To be honest, I wouldn't say any particular teams because, I've talked to people and I've heard of situations to a team that they haven't talked to at all throughout the process. So really, I've talked to every single team that you could think of. I couldn't think of a single team who wouldn't draft me. Not to sound cocky or anything like that, but I think all teams are willing to take me in one of the given rounds. So really, that's something that I try not to think too much about because if I try and think of I'm going to go to so and so team and play here, then on draft day I go to a different team. I don't want that to distract my focus or kind of distract my excitement for the day. So honestly, I really don't care which team I go to. I could care less. Really, I just want to go to a team who gives me the opportunity to go out there and perform.
Absolutely, and you grow up as a fan of a team, and then eventually then your luck will be. Let's say I know you're from Kansas. I don't know if you grew up a Chiefs fan or not, but let's say you're hoping that you're going to be a Chief, and then next thing you know you're an Oakland Raider.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And like you said, I mean, you said it perfectly. I mean, every year we hear about guys whether they're drafted in the first round or the seventh round, they had no conversations with that said team that drafted them. Being here in Chicago, Mitch Trubisky had no conversations, he said, with the Chicago Bears leading up to the draft. And, they went on to go ahead and draft him number 2 overall, traded up to get him. But, Davontae, there, 4 years at Illinois State, you were a cornerback all 4 years. There has been some talk about you possibly moving back and playing safety. How do you feel about that? And also touch on special teams. Obviously, playing at the next level, I'm sure a lot is going to be expected out of you on special teams as well. How do you like, kind of being looked at as a player that'll be a key special teams player throughout his career as well?
Yeah, no. So for me, the biggest thing that I know is when I look at people who've played several years is kind of versatility, and I just want to be one of those players who they can look at and say, oh, he's a corner, he's a safety, he's a nickel, he can play all these positions. I don't want them to look at me solely as a corner because when I want them to be able to look my way and say, hey, jump in. So for me, I what a team recruits me at, because I plan on playing all three of those positions, and trying to make the most out of it. From a special teams standpoint, I think that's the fastest way I'm going to get on the field, and I think most likely that's how I'm going to make the three for the most part is getting on a team and dominating at a position, and then going out there and playing special teams. Because, like I said, the versatility is how people get on rosters and stay on rosters. So the biggest thing for me is go in and dominate special teams and try and be versatile defensively as well.
No doubt about it. And in the opening, I believe you said you're getting ready for a rookie mini camp. Do you mind sharing who that'll be with?
No. So basically, just you mean after you get drafted, it's a week or two, and then whatever team you get drafted to, they bring you in for like little OTAs or rookie mini camp. So I don't know which team I'm going to go to. I don't know what I'll be doing in regards to that, but I just want to make sure when I get there, I'm prepared and ready for the opportunity.
Right. My bad. I was thinking of the local pro days at the team.
Oh, yeah, I got you.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I got you.
Hey, before we end this interview, let's knock out a couple off-the-wall kind of random questions to get to know you, Davontae. Maybe these are some of the hard-hitting questions that NFL GMs really want to know. So I'll start off with let's just say you had an opportunity to cross something off of your bucket list. What's one thing that you've always wanted to do that you've never been able to do, but here I'm giving you the opportunity. I'm giving you the key to unlock that door and being able to do that.
I think bucket list would be to fly over to Africa with my entire family and learn and understand the culture. I think that would be a big bucket list thing.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Besides football, what are some of the other hobbies that you like to spend your time doing? What are some of the other things besides football that you enjoy doing?
I know it's pretty close to football, but I actually love to work out, love cars, and I love being hands-on and learning stuff. Biggest thing that I like to learn is about real estate. That's something that I'm really passionate about and something that I'd like to do post-football.
Okay, and I think you just answered our next question. If you weren't pursuing a professional football career, what would you be pursuing? I take it you'd like to look into being a real estate agent?
No, I look into owning a bunch of real estate, owning property, and
okay.
owning a bunch of land. So that's really what I want to get into for the most part.
All right. Well, hey, Davontae, really appreciate you taking the time today. A lot of fun catching up with you, and again, man, really appreciate you being willing and kind enough to join us not only today but as well as a couple months back. Really appreciate your time. Congrats on all the success, and wishing you all the best, man.
Cool. Thank you.